So this is the big picture moment.
And it's the big picture of NVC because it's a picture that's going to show the purpose of nonviolent communication and its learnable skills. Gesine will explain.
So here I would like to introduce you to the tree of compassionate connection. Here is the hardwood. It's the purpose of NVC and our intention to connect compassionately. So we call it compassionate connection. It's the quality of connection that leads to that everybody's needs being met. Compassionate connection, the purpose. So here's the tree. Here, the roots, and in the roots, it's self-empathy. Or also self-compassion. This is where we connect with ourselves, we ground ourselves. When we reach out to others, then we listen with empathy. As one branch. And we express ourselves. Oops, sorry. On the other branch. It means that we honestly express what's alive in us. So now we have the foundation. We have the hardwood, the intention of compassionate connection. Then we have the roots, grounding ourselves, self-connection, self-compassion. And then we have the two branches where we reach out to others with empathy and honest self-expression. This is the foundation. Now I would like to invite Shantigawa to explain the connection between the roots and the branches.
So, as Gesine has been saying, the roots obviously are below the ground, and this represents our inner world. So this is self-connection down here. And then the branches out here are in the outer world. And I want to talk a bit about how they relate. What's the connection between the roots and the branches? And what you might remember from biology is that in a healthy tree, the crown is no greater than the roots. So what's above the ground is no greater than what's below the ground in a healthy tree, to give that tree balance and stability and resilience, okay? So I'd like to tell a story about trees to help bring this symbol to life, the tree of compassionate connection. So some years ago, I read in the newspaper an article about the Eden Project in Cornwall. And this is a big tourist attraction, and they've got these big biomes. They call them biomes, so big greenhouses effectively, about 35 meters high, and they've got a Mediterranean one and they've got a tropical one. And they grow all sorts of trees and shrubs and bushes in these biomes. And perhaps 10 or 15 years after the start of this project, the trees in these biomes just started falling down. Not just one, not just two, but quite a few of these trees. They were like 5, 10, perhaps even 15 meters high, just started falling over. So of course they were very worried about this, the people who developed the project, because, well, if they haven't got any trees to show the visitors, well, they're not going to be getting any visitors. So they got some biologists to come and do a kind of biopsy on these trees that had fallen over. And they found, to their great surprise, these biologists found that these trees had no roots to speak of. No roots to speak of for the size that they were, for the height that they were. So they were really puzzled about this. Like, well, these were some of the most pampered trees in the world. Soil, air temperature, microbes, fertilizer, the whole lot. And so they were just really puzzled. Why did these trees have no roots to speak of? And eventually they came up with one conclusive explanation to this question. Why did these trees have no roots to speak of? Which may surprise you. So if you just think about it, could it be soil? Could it be the watering? Could it be air temperature, microbes, all those things? There was none of those things. Well, if you've got an idea, just make a note of it.
Yes, and then pause.
And then pause.
Okay.
So what these biologists concluded was that the reason these trees had no roots to speak of was because there was no wind in those biomes, in those greenhouses. No wind. Yeah? So just take a moment to think about that. There was no wind. So these trees had no reason to grow roots. It turns out that trees need wind, need some kind of challenge. Oh, I better grow some roots. Oh, I better grow some roots. Grow some roots. Grow some roots. So the tree sends down energy into the earth to hold on tightly. Yeah, and that's how trees get all around resilience. Yeah, because they send down energy to grow their roots. If there's no wind, well, the tree just grows up. Oh, no problem here, no problem here, no problem here, no problem here, until eventually, just from absolutely no reason whatsoever, under its own weight, just collapses, just falls over. Okay? So it turns out no wind, no roots, or at least no roots to speak of. So maybe just take a moment to think about that for yourself now, what that means to you. Well, what does that mean in human terms? Now, for myself, what I can say is that looking back, some of my deepest roots have grown in response to some of the strongest winds that I've been in. The strongest challenges that I've faced in my life have led to some of the deepest roots that have grown of self-connection, of self-empathy. Now, I don't want to say that any amount of wind is a good thing, because clearly a hurricane or a tornado can blow you down, can blow you over at any time of your life. Or it can lead to you growing, well, you know those trees that grow in Cornwall or South America where they kind of grow at that kind of angle. So it can lead you to grow in a very awkward kind of angle. Actually, by the way, I just heard recently that trees that grow like this, the roots grow out underneath like this. So there is some stability, sort of kind of awkward stability. The roots grow out underneath to support the tree. So I don't want to say that any amount of wind is a good thing. I just want to say that on reflection, that some of my deepest roots have grown in response to some of those strongest winds that I've been in. Now, please don't tell me when I'm in a tornado, please don't tell me, oh, a bit of wind, that's a good thing for you. That's, you know, that could really help you to grow. I don't want to hear that when I'm in a tornado. I would just like some empathy for being in a tornado. Afterwards, when I'm reflecting on it, I might be open to hearing or learning from that wind, from that challenge, and exploring what kind of roots might grow as a response to that challenge. So I'm really curious now. So is this also true for you, that some of your strongest roots have grown in response to the winds that you've been in?
So maybe we need to emphasize again that wind can mean challenge as in human lives.
Yeah. So in human terms, the wind represents, as you say, represents challenge, represents intensity of different kinds, which leads to that rooting action. Now, you'll be pleased to know that they've sorted this out at the Eden Project now, because nowadays, when you go inside the doors, I don't know if you've done this recently, but if you go inside the doors, the first thing that you're met with is a massive wind, because they've got these massive blowers that nearly blow you off your feet when you go in the doorways of these biomes nowadays. So this is the way that they've learned to deal with this issue. They've installed blowers, big blowers that simulate strong winds that lead to the trees growing their roots. And the same thing happens in nurseries where they're growing seedlings for trees. They have big fans that they set on the seedlings, and they move the fans around the greenhouse so that the seedlings get wind from all sides and can develop resilience, all-round resilience. So that's a story about resilience and about how trees develop resilience. How does it sound?
You need to ask.
How does it sound?
So if we look at the tree, and the invitation is that we start with ourselves, that it's like in an aircraft, put on the oxygen mask on yourself first. So that means that you're connecting with yourself, and this is also how you build resilience and inner space. This inner space helps you when you reach out, whatever is there, the wind, you have strong roots, so you can deal with this.
Yeah, so looking at the tree, as Gesine was saying, looking at the tree, if you have space for yourself down here, if you have some roots, some resilience, then you have space for the people around you in the outer world out here. If you have space for yourself, you have space for the people around you.
When I notice there's a challenging situation coming up, it's like if I lean a little bit back, and even though I look at the other person, or I can also close my eyes for a moment, this is where I check inside and connect with my needs. What is this, what I'm longing for? And this is helpful when I'm coming back to the outer world, that I can hear, that I can hold the other person and their experience, what is alive in them, and I can still hold my experience, how it is for me and how I feel right now. So it's helpful to have the clarity, so I don't mix up myself with another person's experience and don't take it so personally. And I found this very helpful. There were many moments when I thought, oh, it's about me. But in fact, they just express what's alive in them. And I learned to listen.
Okay. So for me, that kind of quality of resilience or rooting comes from feeling my feet on the earth and feeling my body and just checking in with myself. Maybe just blinking my eyes just very briefly, like that. Just kind of checking inside, seeing how I'm doing inside. Yeah. Well, we're going to come back to that a bit later on when we talk more specifically about self-empathy. So in lesson 1, we heard a bit about the purpose of NVC, and here in this lesson 2, we've got this map, the big picture of nonviolent communication, the purpose and the learnable skills, roots and branches. And coming up, we're going to look at understanding conflict, how to understand conflict more deeply. So that's what's coming up in the next lesson.
Yeah, and we have a little task for you. We could imagine it's very helpful when you draw your own tree. Also in relation to this tree, Where do you see yourself in your roots and in your branches? Thanks for watching us, and then see you in our next lesson.